The theatrical announcement from the UN Secretary General that the era of global warming has come to an end and the era of global boiling has begun. Now, I don't know, Terry, didn't Antonio Guterres ever hear about the boiling frog metaphor? I think he might have overcooked the propaganda on this one.
Well, look, I feel a bit like a boiling frog myself with all this rhetoric and propaganda going around. And certainly I think when the message starts to fall through, you ramp up the rhetoric. And that's exactly what the Secretary-General of the United Nations seems to be doing, even though I think the average world temperature is about 17 degrees, which is pretty consistent with historical levels, as I think Ian Plimer has pointed out. But certainly I think that type of hysteria, that type of doom-mongering, that type of shroud waving doesn't actually help the cause of the greenies. I don't think it helps it at all. It actually makes them look to be more absurd than ever, more out of touch, more unrealistic, more ideologically driven, as opposed to thinking about you and me around the kitchen table trying to pay our energy bills and relying on the best sources of energy that we can possibly get at a good price. So, look, I think the reality is that Antonio Guterres, I can't use a Spanish accent or a Spanish language accent, but I'm sure it would sound good. But certainly I think his using that type of rhetoric simply on the back of the fact that it's summer in the Northern Hemisphere, and yes, there are bushfires or brush fires or whatever fires they call them on that side of the world, and there are warm temperatures, just like they happen to be down here every summer, year after year after year after year after year. It's really, I think, an admission on his part that the propaganda and that shroud waving isn't working.
Well, this is a giant mess that's sitting on Bowen's desk and he has to sort it out, nobody else. Now, Terry, your morning emails are always full of opinion. What's got you cranky at the moment? Because I know something's frustrating you.
Oh, I'm always cranky. Look, I'm a grumpy, late middle-aged man. I mean, grumpy is in my DNA. And you ask my wife, she'll tell you. But certainly I did... and I'm not grumpy at Peter O'Brien, who did an excellent piece, I think, talking about the voice debate. And I don't really want to talk about the voice debate. I've got laryngitis as far as my voice goes. But he made a very, very fair point about people in the Yes campaign, people in prominent roles in the Yes campaign, in the media, as well as in the more wider activist community behind it. But being irresponsible, perhaps, in calling out their opponents, naming names, criticising and weaponising and politicising the no case and people behind it and people advocating for it. And I think that's not the way to go here. I mean, the voice debate itself, I don't care what side of it you're on. The polls are saying that one way or another it's going to be very close. In terms of certainly numbers of votes, if not numbers of states. And whether it wins or loses, and certainly it's on track to lose, it's going to be a very divisive outcome. It's not going to be like 1967 when 91% of Australians actually voted for, I think actually real Aboriginal recognition in the Constitution. It's actually going to be very close, and I think it's going to be very ugly in the fallout's going to be pretty ugly too, one way or the other. And it's important, I think, for no advocates to rise above the barbs, the provocations from the Yes camp, and actually take them high moral ground here. Don't bite back. Don't fight fire with fire. The Yes may have the emotion in their case. The No's have reason, logic, and rationality in theirs. And I think. I'm sounding like Richard Dawkins, aren't I? But I think it's important that No sticks to that the people leading the No campaign, Jacinta Price, Warren Mundine and others, and certainly Peter Dutton on the political side, actually make sure that as far as they're concerned, as far as they go, that the debate is conducted honestly, politely, respectfully, and basically, if the mud is flung at you, don't fling it back. And I'm optimistic that's going to be the case, but certainly as I think the Yes people, including the Prime Minister, get a bit more antsy, a bit more, well, I won't say hysterical just yet, but certainly getting a bit more agitated, that mud's going to keep coming. And I think it's just important not just for the no case, but I think for the future of the country after the referendum, that those who are actually saying no for all the right reasons, and I think that's pretty well everybody, resist the temptation to fight back in the same way.
Well, thank you, Terry. I mean, you're totally right. I was threatened with genocide last week by a Yes campaigner online. So you're right, the debate has taken a nasty turn. Well, thank you very much for joining us this week on Spectator TV.